our first keynote. She is a Métis adjunct professor at the University of British Columbia, and she teaches students about the historical and contemporary issues in Canada that shape Indigenous sport and physical activity, health programs, and policies. Additionally, she is a professional fighter and mixed martial arts coach. She is the founder of Walking Like Warriors, which is a culturally safe self-defense program for Indigenous youth and women across Canada. So please join me in welcoming our first keynote, Alana Cook. I'm taking over screen share. Is that right? Riley, am I taking over screen share?
Yes, you are.
It's
just like that. Okay, perfect.
I think this is it.
Hold this right here. Hello. Good morning, student. Can everybody hear me? Move that up a bit. There we go. We good? We good. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Oh, this is so funny. My name's Alana Cook. Hello, Tanche, Ismael. I'm really grateful to be here today. I feel like we're still playing a bit of catch up from COVID, so still getting to be here in person is such a treat, and it's really nice to look at faces instead of a blank screen. I've had to do a few conferences where they're like, okay, like the connection's off, we're going to cut off the videos, and then you're just talking into the void, and oh, I hate it. So this is really, really nice. So yeah, I'm very grateful to be here today. And I want to say a really big merci, Heichka, thank you to IPAC, the Indigenous Physical Activity and let's move that right there, Cultural Circle, for inviting me here today as your keynote speaker. How do I move this so that we don't up like that? Okay, perfect. Almost perfect. So my name's Alana Cook. Who am I? And I did Google the other keynote speakers here today. It's pretty daunting. There are some Grand Chiefs, some Olympians, quite a few doctors. So are there any UFC fans here? People watch the UFC? Yeah, this is a stacked card. This is what we would call this right now. This is a very, very stacked card. There's some heavy hitters. There's some high level people. I'm the prelims. I'm a young up and coming prospect. So we're trying to move up the ranks, but grateful to kick us off here today. And yeah, hope I'll bring the energy. So when I like to describe, or really just who I am, I go back to the medicine wheel. And I know we all know this. There's lots of images like this online. I really like this one. And again, when I think about my identity and who I am, I really try and live in a way that balances and represents all four quadrants of the medicine wheel. I really like this one because it has like the seasons, the medicines, the directions. A lot of the research I'm doing and that I'm interested in doing is using the principles of the medicine wheel to decolonize my sport and make me a better athlete. And I found it's also really helped me in all the other aspects of my life as well. I feel like a lot of my identity was in the mental realm when I was in school, and then it really progressed to the physical realm. And then I had a bad injury, and it really had to make me step back and take stock of who I was and examine my identity. And I found that also my spiritual and cultural side was kind of flat for a lot of my life. And anyway, long story short, in my 30s, I'm starting to slowly figure it out that when all sides of myself are equally supported, engaged, and nourished, this is when I feel my happiness and most complete self. So going into the mental realm, oh, I hate this. Going into the mental realm, I am an adjunct professor of kinesiology at the University of British Columbia, teaching KIN 368, which is Indigenous Sport and Physical Culture in Settler Canada. And this actually was my This actually was my first year teaching, September 2022. Very similar to coaching, a little less yelling, a little less push-ups, but the principles are the same. And I found I've really been enjoying it. It's been a very, very cool experience for me. I also hold a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of the Fraser Valley and a master's in Indigenous land-based education from the University of Saskatchewan. And that was a really special degree because it was developed by Dr. Alex Olson, and it was taught in an Indigenous paradigm by primarily Indigenous faculty. And we spent more time actually learning hands-on from community members and out on the land than we did in the classroom with textbooks. The idea was that land was the primary textbooks and the professor was just the translator. So this is a practice that I brought into my work as a professor, and my students can attest to that, as I like to spend as much time learning outside the classroom as possible. And this September, I'm very excited to say I will be entering the doctoral program at UBC, working towards my PhD of kinesiology under Janice Forsyth. In the physical realm, nice photo from my last fight. I am a professional mixed martial arts athlete and currently ranked the #1 pound-for-pound female fighter in Canada. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my goal is to be the first Métis woman in one of the big 4 MMA organizations. So we're working towards that. And I'm also a women's kickboxing and grappling coach at the Animal Boxing and MMA gym in Maple Ridge. And something I try to get away from saying is you always hear coaches say, like, I want to teach the next generation. And I do, but I tell people I also want to teach my current generation. And I want to teach the previous generation. I think martial arts is for everybody, no matter what your age is. And I feel like a lot of the time people will see that and think like, I'm too old. Or they don't see themselves as martial artists. I get people in there with kids. I get people in there who are elderly, who have a disability. And there is a place for everyone there, whether you're there because you want to fight or you just want to learn how to defend yourself or you want to build community or you want to get healthy. There really is a place for you. And I love showing people that martial arts is truly for everyone. My spiritual cultural realm. So I am Métis on my mother's side from the Desjardins family with some Soto and French roots and Scottish settler on my father's side. Something that I've been taught is that Métis people, we don't really have clans, but we have families. So my family is the Desjardins family from St. Francois Xavier, which is a historic Red River settlement. Any cousins out there? Desjardins? Yeah, really? Nice. I'll chat. I call myself a matriarch in training, so hopefully I'll get there one day. And I'm very proud to be a citizen of MNBC, as well as a member of my local charter community, which is the Golden Ears Métis Society. I was also the director of health for 4 years, so that was a really wonderful experience, being able to kind of give back to the community that's given so much to me. And I am the founder of Walking Like Warriors, which is a self-defense lessons for Indigenous youth and women. So some cool photos of us up at Stimulus doing a camp. I started Walking Like Warriors in 2016 because while I noticed there was a lot of self-defense workshops out there, I noticed that many of the instructors seem to really not be aware of the barriers, the challenges that Indigenous people face. And I wanted to create an inclusive, empowering, and culturally safe self-defense workshop that was intended for youth and women from Indigenous communities on and off reserve, and make it as affordable and free whenever possible. And to date, we've held, I think, maybe almost 50 camps. We've worked with hundreds of Indigenous youth, women, and Two-Spirit people, which I'm very proud of. And my emotional realm. I'm very grateful to currently live on the traditional, ancestral, unceded lands of the Cutlam First Nation in Port Moody with my partner, Keenan, and our little Ruby. Even though I don't have a lot of free time and I do have it, I really treasure spending time with my family and my friends. I enjoy traveling, low incline hiking. That's walking. I really creating traditional paper art. I did a course with Lisa Shepherd several years ago, and it really transformed just my understanding, my appreciation of beadwork. And I enjoyed corgi picnics. And that's not where we eat corgis. That's where we have picnics and other corgi people. And It's just instant serotonin. I love it. So before I kind of get into a little bit of what I want to talk today, I just want to introduce myself and let you know where I'm coming from. So many of you have seen something like this before. It's your basic land acknowledgements. You've probably seen this format many times in people's email signatures, on agendas, on government websites, maybe the syllabus for a university course. I'm curious, does anybody here, and just raise your hand, know what unceded means? Okay, people, that's awesome. But everyone here is probably given a land acknowledgement, right? But not everyone really knows what unceded means. It means stolen. And so many people I've come to discover, and I don't say this to shame you, but to draw attention to it, that we give these land acknowledgements and people will say them every day and they don't even understand what the words mean. And they have to remember that when we do these land acknowledgements, we are literally admitting that we are living, working, and playing on land that was stolen and remains stolen from the original inhabitants. And let's look at the other words, traditional and ancestral. When I see these words, I like to think of it as I'm acknowledging that I'm here on these lands that the people here have occupied since time immemorial, time beyond memory. Lands that these people's grandparents, their great-grandparents, their great-great-great-grandparents have always lived on, and they will continue to live on. And unceded doesn't just mean stolen by but I've also looked at that as a bit of a point of pride. Unceded. This land was never ceded. Despite constant pressure, discrimination, threats, and violence, we are still here and we are still protecting this land. So let's try this one for a land acknowledgement. With gratitude and respect, I acknowledge that I am here today as a guest on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Sundemoc people who have been stewards and caretakers of this land since time immemorial. I am humbled to be a speaker here today and strive to act in a way that promotes respect, relationality, reciprocity, and reconciliation. This one's a little bit better. Sounds a bit more sincere, right? So when I do my non-acknowledgements now, I really try and make it a bit more personal. I try and show that I've actually spent some time thinking about the words and that I state what I'm here to do. If there's time, I tell people, try and share maybe a small story about your time on the land, your connection to the territory. If you're doing a presentation online, I get asked this a lot, try and add a photo of the land so people can actually see the real tangible area. It creates a little bit more of a connection to it. And I also want to bring up the idea of ownership versus stewardship. So when my students start, we like go through when they start learning about, Indigenous history, and they said like, they took this land that the Indigenous people owned. I'm like, you're on the right track, but like, let's back it up a bit. Ownership is a very Western idea, I tell them. I want to talk about stewardship. The stewardship, they took care of the land and the land took care of them. It was a reciprocal relationship. So just sharing a little photo, this is when I spent some time in Hawaii. And the Indigenous people there, the Kanaka Maoli, they don't have reserves, it's called homesteads. With my groups, we went to a homestead on Waimanalo Beach. And we were there for their seaweed replantation. So there's an endangered type of seaweed there, a limu. And it is kind of occurring in a place where they do a lot of fishing. So every couple months, they harvest seaweed, they tie it to these rocks, they go into the water and they replant it and give it a chance to regrow. And I just think that's such a beautiful example of that reciprocity. So the land takes care of them, providing them that space to fish, and then in return, they take care of the land, making sure those endangered plants are regrowing. So just a little quick exercise to get us on a food thought. I want to pretend that all of you, we're here, it's 10,000 years ago. Exact same spot, wherever you are, you look around. What do you see? What do you see? Anyone? The ocean? Yeah, perfect, good start. What else would we see? This building probably wouldn't be here, it would just be you. What? Trees, the land, yeah, we're going.
Moss, ferns.
Moss, ferns, animals, yeah. People, yeah, there you go. So people. We never think about that, but listen, name of people would be here, right? So the reason I capitalize the L in land when I make that is because I don't just mean the earth around us. I mean the water, I mean the trees, the animals, and I mean the people. Because the people are a part of this land as much as all the other areas. This may be a bit of a difficult concept to understand sometimes, so it's going to take a little bit of time. I had a chance to sit down with former Chief Herb Joe, a member of Stalo Nation, and he told me a story. Now, Stalo is the Ho'okamallam word for river, and they are the people of the river. And he told me, we are the river. Anything that's going to impact the river negatively is going to impact us directly. And he told me a little story about a long, long time ago, a grandfather and his grandson were walking up Mount Cheong, which is a big mountain in the Abbotsford area. And they looked out on the Fraser River. And the grandson said to the grandfather, "What's that big black mass in the water?" And the grandfather said, "That's the sand." Now, it's a really, really small story, but it tells us two things. Number one, the water was so clear that from the top of the mountain, you could look down and you could see through it. And the salmon were so plentiful that it looked like a big black mass. So the water was healthy, the salmon was healthy, and the people were healthy. Now we look. The water is not potable, it's quite polluted. It's going through other series of flood or drought. The salmon are getting sick, and the population is dwindling. The people are getting sick, and the population is dwindling. When the land is healthy, we are healthy. And when the land is sick, we get sick. When I do my land acknowledgement, I also like to state my purpose. So I took this from Dr. Sean Wilson in his book, Research and Ceremony, and he calls this 4 R's. And these are things I try to remember when I'm working in Indigenous community, whether it's my community or another community. Relationality, respect, reciprocity, and reconciliation. So, relationality. Am I trying to have a quick interaction with this person or group, or am I trying to build a relationship with them? Do I just want to get something from them, or do I want to create a bond that's going to last? Respect. Is there a power dynamic in this relationship, or is there mutual respect? It's really difficult to build a proper relationship with someone where you feel like the power is always in an imbalance and you're always on unequal footing. Reciprocity. If I'm asking this person or group to trust me and work with me, and I'm ensuring that this relationship benefits both of us, are we taking care of each other? And reconciliation, and I mean real reconciliation. Does the work I am doing with this person or group actively promote the establishment and maintenance of a respectful, sustainable framework with Indigenous communities? Are both parties moving forward equally together? And if you've been to UBC, there's actually a really, really beautiful example for this at Reconciliation Pole, which is a really huge photo pole. And near the top, they've got 2 canoes, a traditional Indigenous canoe and a Western style canoe. And they're both carved and they're both moving forward, not one in front of the other, not one behind the other, but at the same time. The Indigenous one's like just a little bit longer, which I'm okay with, but for the most part, it's moving forward very beautiful. So to sum it up, and again, this is the question I get asked a lot of my students is, how do I give a meaningful land acknowledgement? To which I ask them, what kind of guest do you want? And I always tell them, okay, who here has a sibling? Oh, in the crowd, who's got a sibling? Yeah, so most of us know what that's like. So I say, okay, picture this scenario. So you're coming home after a long day of work and you open the door and there's your sibling. They're on your couch, they're eating your chips, they're drinking your beer, they're petting your dog, they're playing your Xbox. And you're like, just what are you doing in my space? And they say like, I'm so sorry. Can I stay here till the end of the month? Just till the end of the month. I'm going through a rough time. And it's kind of a pain, but you know what? You're like, okay, you're my sibling. Okay, yes, you can stay. Now, this can go one of 2 ways. Say your sibling is playing loud music while you're trying to sleep. They're leaving a mess in your kitchen. They're eating your food. They're bickering with you. They're not being a good guest. When they go to leave, it's going to leave a bad taste in your mouth and it's going to damage the relationship. But let's look at this the other way. They say, you know what, I'm so sorry, but can I please stay with you? Let me cover half the rent. Maybe they make you dinner. Maybe you notice that they're cleaning up around. Maybe they bring you flowers at the end of the month. Yes, you didn't really want them there in the first place, but they're being a good guest and they're trying to make it right. We are the guest. I always like to say this too. If, while land acknowledgements are wonderful, if you can get someone from the actual territory, do it. We want to take care of our elders. Whenever possible, invite someone from the local nation to open the event in a good way. And ask well in advance. It is very insincere if you call someone up last minute and say, hey, you come do a land acknowledgement, we got a thing at 3 o'clock. This is something that needs to be done well in advance. It's also custom to ensure that the elder or knowledge keeper receives an honorarium as a thank you for sharing your time and knowledge. There are a lot of elders where this is one of the ways they make money to cover their rent or feed themselves. In the old times, the community would take care of them, but we can't always do that anymore. So this is a really great way to support our elders. Along with an honorarium, a small gift is always appreciated. It can be cultural, like a blanket or tobacco, depending on where you are. Or if that's not possible and you don't always feel comfortable when you're doing that, a gift card, flowers, maybe like a nice mug, just something simple that shows that you care, right? Make sure they have a safe way to get there and arrive home. Elders don't just poof appear, right? We want to take care of them. They might not have Uber, they might not drive, right? So I always ask, do you have a way to get there if you need some help getting here? Offer them snacks and refreshments when you arrive, and maybe have somebody that can take care of them and bring them some water. Has anyone brought you water, Dano? Are you good? All right. Where is he there? And finally, this is one too. Offer to let them stay if they would like. I've seen it a few times where they bring in the elder and they're like, okay, you can go now. No, then you're not getting the idea. If you are having something in their home, and you truly want to invite them, allow them to stay if they want to. If they want to stay for that business, that is their right. Don't rush them out. As I bring this to a close, I also just wanted to share, there's this really great podcast called Go Smell Yourself by Jen Green, and she's come up with this 7 steps to craft a land acknowledgement. It's just a really good, cool poster that you can print out or send out. She talks about a lot of the same things that I talk about here today, but just if you want that visual reminder, this is really, really helpful. And just to say what she says, research the area you live or work in, really think about it, reflect, make it personal, show appreciation for the land, the water, the plants, and the animals, and the people. Show appreciation, humility, and respect for the peoples that have stewarded it, taken care of it since the beginning of time. Say their names right. I practice the name in the car, just to make sure, and I think. And lastly, say thank you. Merci. Aishka. Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions before we close? For Alana? Don't be shy. I wanted to ask you, how long have you been doing this work, boxing?
Boxing? About 12 years.
12 years, it's amazing.
Yeah. My mom will say she taught me with the oven mitts, but formally 19 years, or 19, since I was 19. Yeah, so 12 years. I'm getting old. But that was 19.
Well, thank you for coming over. We have
oh, I got one in the back.
Oh, there we go. Dano.
A lot of them was the workplace that First Nations and Indigenous people the sharing the why of because I'm going to be doing sharing more information for them to be able there. sharing your story and sharing the connections you have to our humble, our calm, water, and all things that are important to our survival and our identity as people. And the reconciliation part that you mentioned is that I believe in sharing with young people, and of course, and having elders that connect. Very important that reconciliation that is one that can help us stay, as you mentioned at the start. And the real reconciliation that has help us doing things and for our community. So there are some things that are it's kind of money over on stuff.
Thank you. I don't think so. I just take that in. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. We have a little certificate and thank you card.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
Actually, yeah, I forgot something as well. One moment. I have a present for you.
In the meantime, I'll just share a story. Well, it's a very short story. When Alana was talking about the land and what did you see this morning, the first thing I did, I got up and I opened the curtains, and the first thing I saw was an eagle fly all the way across my whole window. And it was really beautiful. And I thought, wow, it's going to be a really good day today. Yeah, the sun is shining, the water is sparkling, so it's so beautiful. So if you haven't had a moment, please go outside, take a look around. It's gorgeous out here, and you can really feel that energy of the land and just that presence of that spirit and all that good energy. So please do take that in if you have a moment. Beautiful. Thank you, Alana.
Thank you so much for being here for our first in-person. It's really exciting. I'm just going to pass it back to Shannon to introduce our next presenter. Cook Shannon.
Yes, so our next presenter is Lucas Boucher. We are very excited to have him. So he is a mixed settler and Métis from